afternoon. Hello. Thank you. So I'm your closer. I'm your closer today. And I'd first like to thank Payments Canada for your kind invitation. The conference has been amazing. Your team's been amazing. Everybody, a round of applause for the team. I want 30 seconds back on my clock for that. Okay, so what I thought I would leave you with is a broader perspective on what the future could potentially look like based on looking at innovations that have happened over the last decade and how that has prepared us or not for what may happen over the next. So my talk is all about 2019, which I say is perhaps the most important year that all of you in this room will actually be preparing for, planning for, and making decisions about. And the reason I say that is because if you think about what 2019 represents, it represents the bridge year between the decade that has seen tremendous innovation. Think about the innovations in retail and banking, in every aspect of our lives, mobility, logistics. That has happened in the last 10 years. That will prepare us for the next decade. I'm calling it the Roaring 20s, where I think innovation will simply accelerate. And the choices that you all have to make is what of the last decade, the innovations, the initiatives, the learnings that you are going to take forward into those next 10 years, and what things are better left behind. And so I'm going to give you some ideas about what to pack for the trip, right? So here we are, May 2019, cannot even believe the year is almost half over. So let's think about what we're going to do with the next 7 months, what we're going to pack on our journey, and why. So I'm a little provocative. That's kind of my thing. But I approach my insights, my thoughts with a framework for, again, what is going to drive innovation going forward. So we spent the last 9-10 years wrapped around getting mobile payments to ignite. And I'm saying, leave that behind. What we need to take forward is this notion of commerce on call, and that really is about voice. I've been writing about voice for the last 3.5 years. The minute I saw Alexa and Echo, I knew that was going to be a game changer. It would take time, but it would be a game changer because voice is the most natural interface that we all have. Think about how we bank, we shop today, we talk to people, we use our voice, we ask for help. Voice is a natural interface, and we've been using documents and folders and apps and icons to interact with things in our digital lives for 40 years. So it's time for a new interface. And I think, as I said, voice is that interface. And it's not because it's something that is going to happen. It's something that's happening right now. We do a study each year with Visa on how we will pay. We ask consumers, 5,000 of them, to keep a diary for 7 days. And we ask them what they buy, where they were when they bought it, what they used to make those purchases. And in September, when we release the results, we're going to refresh them again for this coming September. 28% of consumers say they owned a voice-activated speaker. I mean, that's amazing. Think about how long it took for 25% of the population to have broadband in their homes. It was 8 years. In 4 years, we have seen voice-activated speakers now become part of every household. 26% of those who have them used it to make a purchase. Bridge millennials, those 30 to 40-year-olds that are the first generation of connected consumer with spending power, use it a lot. They own more of them, and more than half of them who do make purchases using voice. I think that voice is going to ignite a whole new aspect of commerce. I'm calling it commerce on call, banking on call, opportunities to really think about engagement in a new and different way. And I think consumers are going to pull brands along on that journey, or else they will push them away for someone, something, some institution, some company that can do it for them. I also think we should leave point of sale behind and think about this notion of remote payments. And here's what I mean by that. So point of sale is about going to a place and actually checking out. Going to a place that someone has decided is the best place in an environment to actually check out. Well, consumers don't necessarily want to do that. Consumers have devices in their hands, and they can use them to check out wherever they happen to be online. They are using lots of different channels to make those purchases, even purchases that were once only possible in the physical store. Think about groceries. Think about the evolution and the revolution of grocery shopping today, where 100% of the time, people went to the grocery store and bought groceries. And now, as we see from our study, people are still going to the store, but certainly not 100% of the time to make those purchases. Consumers have many digital options to make those purchases, and what they want is an opportunity to think about order, pay, and fulfill using mobile devices where order and pay is often staged before they go to the physical store to pick up the items that they've bought and paid for using their device whenever they felt like checking out. So checkout, I think, will become kind of a non-event. I think it will create an opportunity for thinking about new experiences, new use cases, whether you're a retailer or a financial institution, thinking about how to reinvent those experiences, those footprints, and those opportunities to engage with consumers. And I think intermediaries, whether that's a financial institution or whether that's an Amazon or a PayPal, who create those experiences and make those things a lot less friction-filled, will have a lot to do with how that happens. Okay, we've talked a lot about artificial intelligence throughout the course of today, and I'm going to add my plug for that. So I think artificial intelligence is an opportunity for all of us to leave chaos behind and take attention forward into the next decade. And what do I mean by that? Well, time is a very scarce commodity for all of us. Whether you're a consumer, whether you are a business, time is an asset that you never have enough of. At the same time, we are creating so much data. So much data, 2.5 quintillion bytes of data every day. That has 19 zeros. That's a lot, it's a big number. 1.7 megabytes of data each day, each one of us creates. We've all seen the statistics, we all know the statistics. But what does that mean? It means that consumers are being bombarded with messages that are irrelevant, that they can't process. There's too much clutter, there's too much noise. And what gets people to pay attention? Using their name, creating an opportunity to give them something that responds to their needs, maybe predicting what their needs might be, an opportunity to make that connection. Lots of studies and lots of data suggest that when you do that, conversion increases, and pretty dramatically. However, many financial institutions aren't using AI in the way that's most beneficial to them. In fact, only 6% of FIs are using AI in areas around personalization, creating different experiences, creating better experiences, really creating that engagement that will get a consumer's attention and get them to act. personalization using AI can finally unlock what we've been trying to find and get to for many, many years, certainly over the last decade, the power of one on a scale that is possible to create economics, profits, and customer satisfaction. Okay, I say leave big bang innovations, the big stuff behind, and think about incremental improvements, and here's why. It's a lot more fun at cocktail parties to talk about the Hyperloop than it is to talk about the Williams Tunnel in Boston, which is where I live. I mean, let's face it. But think about the Hyperloop. The Hyperloop requires, to be successful and to operate at scale, every single thing has to change. Everything, including getting consumers comfortable with strapping themselves inside a tube that goes 700 miles an hour for 36 minutes. And that just connects two endpoints. It's $6 billion. Who knows when it'll be done. To get that to operate at scale is a massive, massive undertaking. The Williams Tunnel, on the other hand, pretty boring, but used tools and technologies and cars that people were driving to solve a real problem. And it was done in a fairly concentrated period of time, and 55,000 cars every day go through the Williams Tunnel, making it predictable now how long you will actually spend in traffic getting to the airport, which wasn't the case before. Changing everything changes often nothing, because it requires too many things to happen all at once to really deliver any value. Jim mentioned Uber. Uber didn't have to reinvent cars or a payment system to actually get ignition. Square didn't have to reinvent anything but a business model leveraging the cards that people had in their hands to shop at those stores. The list goes on. Facebook's Project Libra, which is going to create cryptocurrency over blockchain rails for every human being on the planet, is interesting to talk about, but a very heavy lift, and probably unlikely to succeed if it ever actually gets off the ground. That means that we really need to think about big bets going bust because they take too long to get off the ground. Incremental improvements really can add more value, and they can deliver results in a more meaningful time frame. Okay, as I'm wrapping up, what we need to leave behind is friction and take certainty, really delivering certainty for stakeholders who really matter. Too much innovation ignores where the real friction lies. The reason that you have Carvana selling cars out of vending machines, it's really fulfilling cars out of vending machines, and lots of online dealers now selling cars online is no one likes the experience of buying a car. That's a friction that really is an innovation in an experience that solves a problem for a consumer. Jim mentioned Amazon. There's a reason that people spend $119 a year to buy from Amazon. It's the certainty of getting the product and the delivery when they want it, absolutely without fail. Consumers and businesses will pay for certainty, and what they won't pay for is an experience that creates friction and consumes a lot of their time. Too much innovation, unfortunately, focuses on all the great things that are possible without thinking about what is really going to solve a problem that creates certainty for that consumer, for that business. So in closing, really over the next decade, take nothing for granted. Think about BlackBerry. Sorry to bring BlackBerry up in Toronto, so sorry. But for a decade, they were it, right? It took 10 years to create 35% market share, 2 years to actually lose it almost all. Apple, I mean, who's to argue that Apple isn't an incredibly valuable company, the first $1 trillion company in the world. However, even Apple struggles because the iPhone isn't enough to drive their revenue engine anymore. Food ordered from restaurants. I love this one because it used to be that food ordered at a restaurant was always eaten at a restaurant. But that's not the case anymore. 63% of food ordered from restaurants isn't eaten at a restaurant. And that is only going to accelerate as aggregators and payments make it possible for consumers to buy food at a restaurant and consume it wherever they feel like consuming it. Consumers also don't always bank at banks. We did a study not that long ago to get a temperature on why consumers would consider leaving a bank, in many cases a bank they've had a long-term relationship with, for another bank or another brand. And while consumers find the relationships with their banks very, very satisfying, they trust their bank, it doesn't mean that they wouldn't be interested in moving to another provider if they get the same level of service. And for many consumers, what they're getting today is a commodity. They're getting a checking account, they're getting a debit card, and they're getting the ability to pay bills and have their paycheck deposited into that account. For some consumers, that really is something that they can shop and take to another brand they trust. And who pops to the top of the list? The brands who actually have a transactional relationship with the consumer already, that they trust, PayPal and Amazon. So as you think about 2019, what I consider to be a really important year for making big decisions about the things that are going to design your future and influence the relationship of your relationships with your businesses and your consumers. The only thing that you can really plan on is that the next decade is going to be about a tremendous amount of change. And what you have to decide is how you're going to drive that change within your own organizations and really capitalize on the innovations that make so many more things possible today than they ever were in the decade that we're about to leave. So take the next year very seriously, make your plans, look forward with anticipation and excitement, but plan very seriously. Thank you so much.